Okay.
I'm
Hopefully this,
back.
yeah.
Did everyone get thrown out or just
Yes.
me?
No,
Everyone.
No,
Everyone.
we all got
Everybody.
Oh, so you were just talking there, Monica, and everyone went poof.
And all of a sudden everything just went poof.
My
Oh
son
dear.
just said, "Welcome to my world." My 12-year-old.
Is David here or is David doing this to us?
I have a feeling
If he just touches on the link in the agenda, he'll come right in without complication. Should we text him that? Is Monica back?
I'm back. I'm here.
Sorry. Is I'm now talking to you.
I've seen Andrea.
Is Andrea? I don't have David's phone. His text. I don't have his cell phone.
I have it somewhere, but
I'm texting them. This is Gloria.
Okay, just tell him to tap on the link in the agenda on the website.
I will.
And nothing
Okay.
fancier than that.
Okay.
I'm still texting with David. He says he's typing in the password and he can't get in. I asked him if he's trying to log in as the host. He said no, but obviously he's kicking us out.
Yeah, Andrea, he should just tap the link in the agenda. Go to the website,
oh,
pull
welcome,
up the
David.
agenda,
He's
and
here.
tap the link.
He's here.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't touch anything, David.
Did we get Carolyn back?
She just told me she got kicked off again.
Okay. Well, take two. Okay, so Monica Nemeth, welcome to our September meeting. Chair and Commissioner 3F06. And I will just go down the names since it's easier. So, Andrea?
Andrea Molard, 3F05, Commission Secretary.
Naomi?
Naomi Ruttenberg, 3F03, Commission Treasurer.
And David?
David Christille, 3F01, present.
And Carolyn? Wonderful.
Carolyn Keebler, 3F02 for the moment anyway.
Well, for a few months, you know.
Well, I'm worried that I'm going to get kicked off of Zoom again, and maybe for a few minutes.
No. I think things are stable right now, at least.
Okay.
Well, hopefully. And so everyone has the agenda. We do not have minutes, I understand, for tonight. And I had a request can we do UDC before Essex House? Or do you want to?
Did they request that?
Yes. Any objections?
Nope.
No.
Okay. And anything else for the agenda or any? Okay, so we have a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Agenda is approved. And that includes the stipulated license for the approval for shared pour, Class A internet license. So, Commissioner updates and announcements. So I'll
Hey,
turn over.
Monica,
Mhm.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you send Alex Epa the link to the Zoom meeting?
Sure.
She doesn't have it, or she lost it or something.
Okay, I'll send it to her again.
Okay,
No
great.
worries. And while I do that, Naomi.
Thanks. My only update is that Davenport Street between Linian and I'm not quite sure at the other end if it ends at Connecticut or beyond, has been designated a slow street, though not very well marked. I've heard different things from community members that it has already been effective in slowing down traffic. But on the other hand, I've also heard because it is not well marked, there is one sign indicating it at the corner of Linnean and Davenport, but not at other intersections, that it isn't being all that effective. So people have been writing into the Department of Transportation, and I think I encourage them to continue to do that with their observations. And hopefully we will get this better marked. There's also been a request to extend it all the way down to Broad Branch, to include the stretch between Broad Branch and Linnean as a slow street. So stay tuned.
Okay, thank you. And Andrea.
I have nothing. You're going to hear very soon tonight, later tonight, about the major issue that I've been dealing with.
And Carolyn?
For those who don't know, I am not running for office again this year. Had a few other things on my plate, and it's going to preclude me from doing that again. But I have a really good replacement, and her name is Alexandria Appa, who she will be joining us for a introduction later on this evening.
And David?
Thanks, Madam Chair Monica. So I have, I guess, 2-3 updates. The first one is, for those that are interested, the Hearst Pool Community Center has begun construction again. They've had a lot of water, and my understanding is they had some contracts to sort out. So the contracts have been sorted out. They're pumping out water, and that's back on under construction. The sign says it'll be finished the summer of 2020. I think they just had a digit off, so it's probably summer of 2021. The second thing is, I know we just had and George will talk more about this, we had a Housing and Neighborhoods Committee meeting last night, and one of the matters we talked about was some kind of Ward 3 wide meeting on housing affordability that the Ward 3 Vision people have been working on. I got an update this morning, and that forum is going to be a Zoom forum, is going to be held 2 weeks from tonight at 7:30, and really the forum focus has been narrowed to focusing on racism and kind of I mean, if you've read Richard Rothstein's The Color of Law, it's really about kind of the zoning and how the zoning and land use has affected residential patterns here in DC. So that's going to be the focus. We thought there were going to be breakout sessions on topics like affordable housing and so on, but that's not going to happen. And I think we'll get out information to the website. And if you have, I guess, websites, or if you've got listservs or things you want us to, we can send to publicize this event, we'd be happy to try and kind of make the link. I see Ryan Keefe's on here. He's also a Ward 3 Vision member. And so I think we've got a lot of interest in this topic. And the third thing, like Naomi mentioned, there are 2 slow streets in our area, or my SMD, that actually one borders with Monica. It's the Yuma Street, and there's been, those barriers have been up for a little bit. And then there's also on 36th Street, which is also both Monica and my SMD. Those have been up, and I think they have had, they've slowed traffic down. A little bit of a hiccup with Hearst School, or excuse me, Sheridan School, but I think they're working that out. And so that's it. Thanks.
David, where do people get the Zoom information in order to?
Well, I think the best place is the Ward 3 Vision website, and I don't have that off the top of my tongue, but I think if you Google it, you'll find it. And again, once we get the information, it's not, and I don't know that the actual Zoom information is ready yet, but I would save the date 2 weeks from tonight, from 7:30 till approximately 9 o'clock.
Can we get that put into our calendar along with the Zoom information when we have it?
Sure.
People can use that to get in?
Sure. I imagine so. I'm the new kid on the block here, so I'll defer to the my elder stateswomen about the the administrative protocols. But I think
When you get the info, I think if you send an email to Rachel, asking her to add it to the calendar along with that info.
Yep, that's all I need.
great. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you, David. And then, so I have a few things. As David had mentioned, slow streets. So that's been the thing that has been the big project that's been going on in my SMD with the Yuma and 36th Street. And then also just literally in the past 10 days, DDOT has been doing a lot of paving. Much of it has been in my SMD, it seems, though some of it has been on Yuma and it's been bordering with David and myself with FO1, and I'm not sure where else. I mean, I guess maybe FO5 might be affected by some of this as well. There's that whole pocket. I'm not quite sure which streets entirely. I haven't mapped it fully out, but there's been a lot of repaving. They literally just did my street, my block, yesterday. So Pave DC has been very active in 3F in the last 2 weeks, which has been great because certainly streets have needed it. But that happened to cause some problems with the Sheridan School because they scheduled that work to happen just as Sheridan was returning to school. And then Sheridan is actually having in-person classes, and literally that's where some of the difficulties lie. With the slow streets, some of the signage for the slow streets and barriers were right on the block with Sheridan School. And that was causing issues with pickup and drop-offs for students. So working with Sheridan, DDOT and such, we're just figuring out what's the best way to manage that whole flow now that Sheridan's back in session, so to minimize the disruption. So I think it's coming together. It just sort of seemed to hit it all at the same time with slow streets, paving, and then Sheridan back in session. So that's the big news out of the SMD. And there's a couple of other general announcements, which you've all heard me say before. Census, folks, if you haven't done your census yet, I mean, the clock is ticking, please. And like everyone you know, make sure you get respond to the census. It's very, very important. And then another general reminder is I've been working with a group on voter registration. This is an election year, and please, everyone, make sure your voter registration is up to date. If you're not, and certainly register to vote. If you're not registered to vote, please confirm with the Board of Elections that your voter registration is up to date. The deadline to get it, the official deadline is October 13th. And you can go right now to DC public libraries. They will work with you there. Librarians are able to help you get this done, to check your voter registration and to get you registered if necessary. And since the BOE is going to be sending out ballots to all DC voters, it's really important to make sure your registration is up to date. So please, you owe to yourselves to confirm your registration, get registered. It's an important year, lots of important things on the ballot. So that is all I have with my announcements. And so let's head to committee reports. And so Parks and Trails. Oh, Erica, here this evening? Okay, I know we did have a Parks and Trails committee meeting just this past Monday. I don't know, David, you were also there, or?
I was. This is Erica Rosenberg is a Van Ness neighbor, and we recruited her to chair this committee. And so she had her first meeting and she had a Zoom call, and I think it was her first chairing experience in this world, and I think she did a good job. They raised a number of issues, around the, soapstone and Melvin Hazen Park and drainage and how to, essentially how to work with, in this case, it was, I think the Department of Environmental Services on that. And I think what they're going to do is, putting together essentially a work agenda, hopefully looking at some short-term things to work on and some longer-term areas to work on. They've got a lot of expertise. I'm not going to recite all the names. I know David Barton is one of them, but they've got people that have a long-standing interest in what's going on in kind of helping the open space, green space, park space in ANC 3F. Do better. It's a challenge because of all the, the water that we've had recently, and that's created some issues. And those of you that were here, I guess it was last Thursday, Rock Creek overflooded its banks again. I'm not sure what it was like upstream to the north, but I know Tilden Street was like a, was like a sort of like a river. So it's certainly an issue that's important to try and reduce the water that goes into, down into Rock Creek as best we can. And again, I think the Hearst Park pool construction hopefully will help at least one small step to help that out. But we had a good meeting and good turnout and good energy, and that's all I'm. I don't know, anybody else who was there want to chime in?
Nice to hear that they're up and running again.
Yes, I agree. And one of the things that I know the committee, that was discussed is potential name change for the committee itself. So we shall see what happens in the future. And that part of that's motivated by potential name change, hopefully, for Melvin Hazen. But that's a federal.
It's a mouthful as it is, and we're trying to make it a smaller mouthful. I think parks and is it parks and wetlands or parks and watersheds? It was something short.
Yeah.
What's a mouthful, David?
The current name is a mouthful.
Of the committee?
Yeah, because it's
Trails?
the proper name is Substone Valley, Melvin Hazen, Parks and Trails, something like that.
Why don't we just stick with Parks and Trails?
Well, because right now it's Melvin Hazen, Soapstone.
Oh, is that what the official name is really all that?
The official name has got like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was just Parks and Trails.
No.
There's a whole history to that because it started out just addressing those two particular bodies. And then there was we wanted to incorporate the new daylighting area that was off of Linnean and Broad Branch. And so we added Parks and Trails or something to be able to bring in new areas.
We can almost chant it. It's like Ma Nishana Ha La La. I mean, anyhow, sorry.
So
Oh, I thought maybe you wanted to rename it because some crap came out about Melvin Hazen himself and.
Well, I know we have important business to carry tonight, but I didn't, and I'm a city planner. Supposedly Melvin Hazen was some zoning person back in the day, and this was news to me. So I was a little, I'm not embarrassed, but it's just
that is another motivation, but that's not the principal motivation. I think just it's a mouthful But
Okay.
since the park itself is not going to get renamed anytime soon.
Parks and Trails sounds good to me.
But anyway, thank you for that. And so I don't think Bob is here for
No, but I can kind of give a summary of that because I attended that meeting. And I think George was on the call as well, and David was.
Yeah.
We had a meeting on September 9th. Went over quite a few issues that are carryovers from our major agendas from 2019 and various initiatives that we've been working on as a committee. One of which is the Connecticut Avenue reversible lane study. which is in progress. And we are trying to set up two things. We're trying to set up an intra or inter ANC meeting or Zoom call with the other ANCs that are participating in this with their advisory committee that they have established with VDOT to kind of manage the progress of the study. And apparently there has been progress made on VDOT's part. We need an update from them, but we would like to try to have the meeting with the community advisory group participating in that meeting with VDOT. I think it's time to get everybody involved in at the table. So we're trying to set that one up, and we'll notify anybody. I think that'll be a closed meeting with VDOT, but we'll keep you posted on that one. And then let's see, we have ongoing issues with sidewalks and street repairs. Tony, I see you're on, so you might want to introduce yourself. Tony is our new liaison, taking over from Rich Harrington, who had done a lot of the work with the committee with respect to the surveys that the committee had done for missing sidewalks and various sidewalk and intersections and crosswalk repairs that were needed. Progress has been made during the last summer on a lot of those repairs, but there are still some priority areas like missing sidewalks and some very highly trafficked areas that pose a danger to pedestrians. And I think many of you on this call probably are aware of those. Tony's been working with me to set up another review with Denise Donaldson and GDOT to go over that survey and touch on those priority areas to see if we can get those going. So Tony, I'm sorry I'm interrupted. I want you to introduce yourself to everybody. I don't think everybody's seen you yet.
I've greeted ANC 3F before, but good evening, everyone. Again, I'm working with Commissioner Keebler to address some things in terms of transportation, and we've been in contact with Donise, and she's reviewing ongoing list of priorities for DDOT right now and seeing which ones are already on track to be repaved and fixed, and then how we can address the other ones based on the priority that the committee has already put forth. But in addition, I also want to add, if anyone has any other concerns related to Ward 3, I am your liaison in the mayor's office. And so I'm always happy to connect to help to address any concerns that you might be having and to work with various district government agencies to continue to make progress and make sure that government is working for you all. And so I will share my contact information in the chat as well, if anyone has anything they want to share.
Thank you, Tony. And
Frozen, Monica.
Housing and neighborhoods.
yeah, housing and neighborhoods.
Wait, streets and sidewalks, Carolyn also discussed what we're going to hear about in more detail later, which is this potential effort that ANC 3F is interested in funding or purchasing services for, perhaps to get some air quality monitoring, to get the information on air quality relevant to the Connecticut Avenue traffic study options.
Thanks, Monica. Thanks, Andrea.
Yes. And housing. George, housing and neighborhoods.
George Hoffman. We had first fall meeting last night. We have 3 new members, which we're thrilled about. Alexandria Appa and Tivon Donovan and Kashini Ladu Waheti. And they're gung-ho and we're gung-ho for them. So we now have 8 members, which is a good thing. We'll be working on particularly rent control. That's immediately on our horizon. We had hoped that we would co-sponsor through David Christille a Ward 3 affordable housing meeting, but Ward 3 Vision has taken the lead on that. And I think there's going to be a lot more opportunities down the pike for our involvement as an ANC to work with the other ANCs in Ward 3 and groups like Ward 3 Vision to see what we can get done on affordable housing. It's a very hot topic nationwide, and it's a very hot topic locally. We've done a lot of work, some of us this summer, on housing and new residents. We've done a lot of investigative work into the vetting process, spoken to numerous people peripherally, also involved in the homeless issue. Very productive talk with Adam Rokamp, and very impressive the way organizations like Miriam's Kitchen, for example, have doped out the vetting process and work every day at solving these problems. The rent control thing, I'm hoping very much that Councilmember Anita Bonds' Housing and Neighborhoods Revitalization Committee will schedule an omnibus rent control reform bill, which is being proposed by Council members Trayon White and Brianna Nadeau. So far, Councilmember Bonds has not scheduled a hearing. We're waiting with bated breath to see when she will do that. It's probably not a good moment right now for ANC 3F to weigh in on what's happening in rent control. They're readdressing what they thought was a done deal. We're not sure how far the Nadeau-White bill will go. Stay tuned. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
So we got the report, this a written form of this from George by email. I'll email it to Rachel. Rachel, can you post it on the website along with all the other ones?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And Rachel, Bob had also sent out some meeting minutes and notes for the meeting that we had on the 9th. So do you want me to send those too? You can post those.
If you want those posted, sure.
Yeah, okay, we'll do.
Thank you. And Andrea, anything for grants?
No. No.
Okay.
We've gotten no new applications for grants, even though this is nominally, September, October is nominally a grant cycle. We should have heard from applicants by now and to vote on them in October, and there's nothing.
Okay. And let's move to the community forum. I received an email from Adrian Salzgiver, who's asked to speak. So we're going to have Adrian as one of the speakers, and we're going to have the candidates for the vacancies in 3F are also going to be speaking during the forum. Do we have anybody else?
Monica Van Ness, Main Street.
Thank you, Gloria.
Juanita Gray at the University of the District of Columbia.
Okay, is that separate from the master plan presentation?
Separate. These are updates. The presentation is separate.
Okay.
Monica, there have been a couple of things that are posted in the chat that I think it may be better to just have them speak at the open forum. instead of typing big, long things in the chat.
Yeah, I'm going to start going through the chat right.
Steve Marenchit. And something else from Barbara Kraft.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're going to speak during open forum or not, but that may not be bad.
Okay. So then we'll go through these individuals first, and then we'll give the candidates their due. So let's start with Adrian Salzgiver.
Hi. I would first like to thank everybody that signed the petition to put Initiative 81 on the ballot. And for those of you that don't know, it's the initiative. It's called the Entheogenic Plant and Fungus Policy Act of 2020, and it will make the investigation and arrest of adults for non-commercial planting, cultivating, purchasing, transporting, distributing, possessing, and or engaging in practices with entheogenic plants and fungi among the Metropolitan Police Department's lowest law enforcement priorities. It doesn't change impaired driving laws, and it doesn't apply to minors under 18. And this initiative was proposed by Melissa Lavasani, a mother of two, and DC government worker who used entheogens to effectively treat postpartum depression. And this is needed because the war on drugs has clearly failed, and it's time for new approaches. So by making these plants and fungi the lowest law enforcement priority, Initiative 81 will start to change our outdated drug laws and make it possible to redirect public safety resources to strategies that really work. And so I would like to ask the commission if they would consider a resolution or some kind of letter of support for this important initiative. And so I welcome discussion on that. And I'm going to put in the chat a couple links so that anybody would like to do any research to know more about this initiative or plant medicines. They're a great alternative to pharmaceutical drugs, which don't work for some people. A lot of people have tried pharmaceutical drugs to get off depression and anxiety and PTSD, and a lot of these pharmaceutical drugs just don't work, or they don't work after a while, and these plant medicines have proven to work. So that's why we're asking everybody to vote yes on 81 and for the commission to consider backing this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think we're going to consider a resolution at this time because it is actually going to be on the ballot. It's not something that's going before DC Council. And so I think at this point we should just simply let the voters decide. If this was something before DC Council, I think we would be more apt to weigh in. But at this point.
Okay, well, I'm going to just put a couple links in the chat so that people can.
Please, absolutely. Let them
do some more research. They'll know what it is and so forth. So,
absolutely. And thank you. I don't know, does anyone have any commissioners have any questions for Adrian? Okay.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Gloria, Van Ness Main Street.
Thank you. Gloria Garcia, Executive Director, Van Ness Main Street. My first update is that very exciting that the formal expansion request for our Main Street has been approved by the Department of Small Business of DC. And so now we are official from Van Ness to Nebraska Avenue and a half a block in each east-west at every cross street. So we have basically more than doubled in size, and we have been working with those businesses, so we're very excited about that. Also, at the same time, we have partnered, approved by the board of Van Ness Main Street, with New Columbia Solar. They're a solar energy company based in DC who has already converted many of our residential large buildings or is in the process of converting them to solar. So we're going to work with the other residential buildings and hopefully, you know, a more greener corridor with them. So if anyone is on tonight who is part of any of those residential buildings, condo boards or tenant associations, please get in touch with me because we'd love to make the connection.
Gloria?
Also, yes.
Real quick question is that only the ones who are bordering Connecticut Avenue?
No, they're off Connecticut. They've already converted, like, I think Van Ness South and East. So they can be anywhere, honestly.
Okay.
You know, they can be anywhere in the city. It's just that we have, you know, we've agreed to help them promote the ones on the corridor or right off of the corridor.
Got it.
So, and it's big buildings, big residential buildings, as well as some of our commercial properties. So that's exciting news on the environmental side to make us greener. Also, further on the streetscape, we have $1.5 million was designated a couple of years ago to study the commercial corridor from Yuma down to the metro. And currently DDOT is looking at the two firms that actually have submitted bids. And so they will be making the selection shortly, and we're looking forward to moving that process because this was approved back in 2017. So
from Yuma to where, Gloria?
I'm sorry?
From Yuma to where?
Yuma to the metro station, to the corner of before 4250. What is that one? Is that Wyndham? Veazey. Yeah, sorry, Veazey. Yeah, but it's really the block of Yuma to, you know, that big in front of the Law Center, which is 4340. It's part of the commercial corridor study. I'm sorry.
And who allocated $1.5 million to study the streetscape?
I think she's run off to Jason. Oh,
I'm sorry. I was trying to stop the barking. It was part of DDOT's Planning and Sustainability Division. And this was spearheaded by Marlene, our former board chairs, and I've been following up on it and trying to follow up of where they are in the process.
Okay, thanks. Sorry.
Okay, I can send more information on it to everyone. But I just wanted to make people aware that this is moving along, although very, very slowly. The other thing, we are going to do a bulk with respect to the businesses. We've lost a business. I don't know if everyone's aware that we lost Diplomat Cleaners about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so that's vacant now. We are working with UDC closely, and Juanita might have an update on that, and with KLMB on the interest in the empty retail from UDC on UDC's side. For the businesses, we're running a fundraising campaign through September. We're going to do a bulk PPE purchase. And, that is one of their biggest new costs. So thank you for those who are sending in money, because we are getting money. I've also been working with Woodley Park, Cleveland Park, and Van Ness has been working with DDOT to get the businesses to respond to the reversible lanes survey that was out there. And we're having a call tomorrow morning to review if we need to extend the survey due to the response rate of the businesses through that corridor. And then my last thing I'd like to mention is that we are going to launch on October 1 our equity grant program that'll focus on helping our women and minority businesses. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one real quick question for Gloria. Hey, Gloria,
Sure.
are you part of the community advisory committee or whatever it is for the Connecticut Avenue survey?
I don't, for the survey or for the whole study?
For the study?
No, I'm
No?
not.
Okay.
No, I've been focused more on the businesses and trying to work with DDOT on the effect of the businesses, but they have briefed the Van Ness Main Street board.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question.
So DDOT is the conduit then between Van Ness Main Street and the work you're doing with the businesses and the advisory group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And Gloria, if I may, I have one question, Madam Chair. On this streetscape project you talked about, do you have any sense of when that's going to start?
You know, this was approved in 2016 or 2017 early, and I have been, since I started, I've gotten the same response from DDOT and our contacts there, whether it's Denise or Ted Van Houten, that, you know, they're received responses from 2 firms and that they're evaluating them. And so, no, David, honestly, I don't.
Okay. The reason I ask is, you know, it's sort of connecting the dots. You know, Cleveland Park has a, you know, there's the Connecticut Avenue study that's taking place. And if there's anything that comes out of that that may require any construction, you want to make sure that that's coordinated with, you know, what's going on in Cleveland Park, what's going on in Van Ness, so on. So
yes, yeah, I am in touch. I mean, the Cleveland Park Main Street ED and I are in constant contact, and we've been funneling everything together with DDOT. So we're not working in a vacuum from each other. And also, I'm very much on top of when this should also be coordinated with all the sidewalk that needs to be ripped up in front of the UDC Law School at 4340, where my office is, because of the water pipe situation of water coming into the law school. So all of this has got to be coordinated. So I'm trying to keep all of it together.
Right, and let us know. And right below me, Mr. Donaldson's there. So anything we can do, and you know, through Mary Che's office, through DDOT, through the mayor's office, we're going to make sure that, you know, things are, you know,
coordinated.
And coordinated.
Yeah, yeah.
Gloria, I'm trying to put together all the contact people of who might be involved in the Connecticut Avenue study. Could you send me the contact information for the New Cleveland Park Main Street, please?
Sure, of course.
Great, thank you.
Of course. And that's Carolyn, right?
Yep, that's me.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
And so, Ms. Gray, Juanita, what do you have for UTC?
Juanita Gray, the University of the District of Columbia. Sorry, I got to read my notes here, so I'll be looking down. Classes started last Tuesday, a lot differently than our normal class schedule would start. Everything is pretty much virtual. We are, I would say, 95% virtual. We do have some classes, some labs that they have to meet in person on campus, but there is a process for students, faculty, and staff for checking in. There are 4 separate checkpoints for everyone to go through at various locations, and there's a process. So right now, our campus is not open. Well, I'm not gonna say it's not open to the public. People can walk on campus, but to get into any building, pretty much all the access is closed. So Rachel, if you ever needed to, or any of the commissioners, if you ever needed to get to your space, let me know, and I would have to help you set that up through the system that we're using. Let's see. As far as enrollment, enrollment is up a little bit this year. I don't have the exact numbers right now because we still have, actually enrollment is closed, but we're getting the finalized numbers, so I'll share that in October's meeting. Let's see, we have some staff changes. Some of you know, some of you may not know that our Chief Operating Officer, Troy Stovall, has left the university. We have in his place David Franklin. David was the acting, or not acting, he was the deputy COO, and currently he's the acting COO. And he's on the line tonight as well. We also have Alex Garrett, who has taken over for Eric Thompson. Alex has been at the university for about 8 years now, so he is a great asset, and we're happy that he's here to fill in that role. Let's see. In terms of, Gloria mentioned KLMB. We are working with KLMB, as you all know. The only thing that I can really share right now is that we do have some interested vendors. I cannot share who, I cannot share what, but I can say we do have some interest. And once we are able to give more information on that, obviously I will. Virtual convocation is this Thursday, September 17th. You can go on a UDC webpage if anyone is interested in going to that event. It starts at 10 a.m. and the keynote speaker is Dr. Lawrence Potter, who is our Chief Operating Officer. We also have other virtual events that are going on, so I do encourage everyone to go to our university website, check the calendar. There's a lot of stuff still going on, so even though we are not physically on campus, we still are running a university and we're still providing programs and activities for our students. And then lastly, unless anyone has any questions, I do want to announce the passing of John Gordon. John Gordon was the Director of Communications. If you have been to any of our large events or been to our convocations, you have heard his voice. We called him the voice of God because he had a very deep and resonant radio voice. So just wanted to pass that along as well. Do you have any questions from commissioners or the community?
Yeah, I do. Juanita, I just want to be clear. You said that the new COO is David Franklin, and then you said later that at the convocation, Dr. Lawrence Potter, the new COO, is the keynote.
My apologies. David is our acting Chief Operating Officer, and Dr. Potter is our Chief Academic Officer.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Juanita. So next we have Stephen from OPC. Let's see, it's Stephen Marinesic. You still there? Maybe not. Maybe just put all this stuff in the chat and left. Okay, Barbara Kraft.
Yes, I think Stephen left a few minutes ago. Stephen from the Office of People's Counsel. Yes, this is Barbara Kraft. I live on Upton Street. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I did want to respond to when Stephen posted the information about the hearings on September 29th on PEPCO's proposed rate increase. I did want to let him know that the Washington Interfaith Network leaders plan on testifying at that hearing. I am on the Washington Interfaith Network strategy team, which is sort of like a board. And as I said, a resident of Upton Street. And the Washington Interfaith Network, or WIN, is very interested in affordable housing issues, especially affordable housing in Ward 3. So I was gratified to be on this call, both because we were talking about housing and also because I was looking forward to meeting the candidate for our single member district. And as you know, we haven't had a commissioner for a while, so I'm really happy that someone is running. So yeah, so yes, I'm interested in affordable housing on my street in our neighborhood here in Van Ness, and as a member of the WIN board, it's also an area that I work in. So thank you.
Thank you. And then with that, let us have the candidates introduce themselves. What I'll do is I'm just going to go down through SMD and in order. So for 3FO1, David Castile, he's running for re-election unopposed, and we all know David here. So I don't see a need for him to say anything, just like I'm not going to say anything about myself since I'm also running unopposed. But for 3F02, we have Alexandria Appa.
Yes, hi everybody. Good evening. It's been great to be part of the conversation. I've been, so as you know, I'm running for 3F02. I live in 3003 Van Ness. I've lived here for a couple of years now. I'm really excited to, Carolyn, Commissioner Kluber has been really wonderful in helping me get my campaign up and running so I can take over for her next. I'm really interested. I've also joined the Housing Commission. So I am also interested in housing and affordable housing, fair housing, and it would maybe in the future like to be a homeowner in this area, but not sure if that's possible because this area is very expensive. A little bit of background about me. I've been working in healthcare for the past 15 years. I currently work for Optum as a client manager. I have my MPH and my master's in public health, and then my bachelor's is in neuroscience. So I've been really working in healthcare for a really long time. I started my career after grad school living in Baltimore and really addressing social determinants of health. At Johns Hopkins, I ran a program that helped increase access to primary care for uninsured individuals. This was before the ACA. So healthcare is really my heart and all the things that surround that. I'm really interested, of course, in safe streets, the environment with the soapstone, all of the issues that are going on around soapstone. I partly moved to this neighborhood because I love this area so much. Rock Creek Park has been such a savior during the pandemic. And of course, I want to increase engagement and get more community members. It's really great to see so many people on this call. So I really want to continue to build on the momentum that you guys have all created and continue to get more folks involved. I mean, hopefully, maybe in 2021, we'll be able to meet in person and really get out and get some foot traffic so folks can really join in person. So it's really wonderful to meet all of you. I think my candidate statement will be up in the Forest Hill connection, I think this week. I think Marlene might be on here. And my campaign website hopefully will be up by the end of the week. So please look out for that. Wonderful to meet everybody. And I do unfortunately have to drop off. My poor husband's been putting a IKEA thing together all by himself. So I apologize that I do have to go. But I definitely plan on staying for the full meetings in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Alex.
Thanks.
And next we have up for 3F03, Deepa Mehta. Welcome, Deepa.
Hi, thank you, Monica. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak. I appreciate it. And Alexandra, she's gone now, but that was great. And I'm a little bit taken aback because she's got a campaign website that's going to be up and running. So Alexandra, when you're done with yours, could you please get mine up and running? Because I hadn't even thought about that. I am running, I believe, unopposed to fill the seat that is currently occupied by Commissioner Ruttenberg. I've lived in Forest Hills since 2004. I have 2 kids. I'm an attorney by training. I do have a husband as well. He's not a footnote. I should have mentioned him. And we've been in this neighborhood, as I said, since 2004 on Chesterfield Place in Forest Hills. This is not really my first interaction with some of the issues that have been discussed here. I have been engaged. First, initially, I was engaged as a member of Van Ness Vision Committee, which was a committee of the ANC back in 2013. That morphed into, I shouldn't say morphed because a lot of people have put a lot of hard work into transitioning that over to the official Van Ness Main Street that Gloria now very, very capably leads. And I was one of the founding board members for that organization, and I chaired the Economic Development Committee in that organization. In that capacity, we dealt with a bunch of issues, but some, just to give you a flavor for some of the ones that I was kind of in the forefront of. One was negotiating the letter of intent. I drafted and negotiated the letter of intent with UDC to activate the vast amount of retail space that is either controlled and or owned by UDC, but remains vacant. I led the effort. I wrote with lots of input and support, but wrote and testified in front of DDOT when Chick-fil-A was considering occupying, taking over the Burger King site and running as well the drive-through there. So there were some significant safety concerns around that. So that was quite a big project, and it was interesting, and frankly, it was very satisfying actually to have that kind of impact. So and along the way, I've also been involved. I drafted and submitted the first Great Streets grant application for a business in our corridor on behalf of Bread First. After that, I did one for Acacia Bistro, and then I assisted sort of tangentially, didn't draft it, but assisted tangentially Italian Pizza Kitchen. All three were eventually grant awardees by the district's Great Street Grants program. Those are probably my three sort of major involvements in some of the issues we've been talking about, like economic development and sustainability and streetscaping, as well as traffic and pedestrian safety. That's kind of a mouthful. I don't really think I have much more to say. My campaign statement, I guess, will also be coming out in the Forest Hills Connection. Thank you for that opportunity, Marlene. And if anybody has any questions or comments, I'm happy to field anything right now. Okay, well, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Deepa.
Thank you, Deepa.
Thanks, Deepa.
And so 3F04, Stanley Wall, I don't see him in the participants. Stanley, are you here tonight? Okay, I guess Stanley did not join us. So then we will go to 3F05, which is the only SMD in 3F that has a competitive race. So we'll start with Claudette David first.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you, Chair Monica Namath, for reaching out to us and inviting us here tonight. I'm Claudette David. I am a Washingtonian. I was born in DC. I've lived in 3F05 for 7 years as a homeowner in the Essex, which you'll hear a little bit about later on today. But I love this community. Have done work with students at Edmund Burke down the street. I think the corners, Connecticut and Upton, just doing community service work, picking up trash in Rock Creek. My work has mostly been around expanding the electorate. I'm the executive director of the DC Democratic Party. So, I've done a lot of work with engaging people in voting, education, most recently being in touch with voters about different ways to vote. It was really difficult during the primary, and we worked with the Board of Elections this time around to just make sure it was, just kind of push on making the process easier, which is now, we've got mail-in ballots this time. So I enjoy just engaging the community. I've done most of that on the international setting, just haven't been in the Peace Corps in the past. And this is just a wonderful opportunity to do that work in my own community. I've done it within the building, but haven't so much done that much with getting to know my neighbors outside of my building. So this is a wonderful opportunity to do this. So thank you.
Thank you, Claudette. And Ryan.
Thank you for inviting us, Chair. So my name is Ryan Keefe. I've been a resident of 3F05 for most of the last 20 years. I've been primarily a transportation and housing advocate in Ward 3 and elsewhere in the District of Columbia during that time. I have done, I would say, a lot of work around particularly housing and the comprehensive plan over the last year and trying to promote more housing opportunity in Ward 3 that will hopefully take place going forward. I have, sorry. I've been engaged at the local level for a very long time on lots of issues in 3F and the rest of Ward 3. And I was hoping to take a step from being an advocate for our community to sort of someone who can push more formally from the ANC's position for safer streets, for better housing opportunities, and for a more sustained business community up in 3F. Thank you guys for attending this meeting. You know, I really love seeing so many people at an ANC 3F meeting, especially because attendance has fluctuated, I would say, throughout the last couple years. And I look forward to engaging with you guys more.
Thank you. And so, as I mentioned before, 3F06, that would be me, and I am running unopposed, so I'm not going to take time at this point to speak about myself, since you all know me. I'm instead going to go to 3F07, where I have to say I am thrilled that we do have someone running, because we've gone an entire term, 2 years, without anyone in that seat, and it's been difficult. It's been challenging to not have representation there. So Matt Buckner, is that how you like it's pronounced, correct?
It's Matt Buechner, but no one ever gets it right, and that's so much closer than most people get it. So,
well, Matt, welcome, and thank you for running, and take it away.
Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Matt Buechner, and I am indeed running to represent 3F07. I'm inspired by all of my fellow candidates tonight to hear about what gets them excited about our community. I've lived here in Ward 3 for about 7 years now and have been a renter in 3F07 at 3701 Connecticut for about 6 years as of October 1st, so knocking on that door. Professionally speaking, I'm currently a senior data analyst at the American University Washington College of Law. And in that role, I work with senior leadership to use data essentially to tell stories, is how I like to describe it. But essentially, it's making strategic decisions based on data. Prior to this role, I've worked for the last 6 years in policy and advocacy, as well as strategic program management, largely within the healthcare advocacy space, representing safety net hospitals. So it's been a little bit of a transition into this role, but it's all sorts of fun. I received my master's of public policy from AU in 2015. So I have that background as well. I'm also on the board of directors of the DC State Fair. So if you didn't know, we had our virtual DC State Fair this past weekend. And so I work largely with our community vendors as well as in communications. So if you didn't take part in any of the DC State Fair stuff that went on this past weekend, our photo contests are still live on our Facebook. Feel free to head on over there and take a look. But I'm hoping to represent ANC 3F07, really to make sure that our SMD has actual representation, but also to make sure that our neighborhood remains vibrant and engaged as we plan for and adapt to a neighborhood of the future. And a neighborhood that's more affordable and inclusive and works for all of us. And I really care about affordable housing, affordability in general, as well as our environment and accessibility and community engagement. So again, thank you all so much for listening to me and giving me the floor tonight. And I look forward to seeing you all in the community. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to matt4anc.com, or you can just email me at matt4anc@gmail.com.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And with that, we've reached the end of our community forum. So let us have UDC and their Van Ness Campus Master Plan is on deck next. So, Juanita, are you gonna take the lead here, or who?
No, I am. Thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Hi. Thank you all for having us this evening so we can make this presentation. My name is Avis Russell. I'm the General Counsel for the University of the District of Columbia. We have a brief presentation to summarize the master plan. Some of you were present when we had the community meeting and presented information about the master plan. So some of this will be repetitious for those of you who attended that, but we're glad you participated then and you're participating now. We have on the call our consultants. We have Cozen and O'Connor, who are our attorneys and planners. Ronnie McGee and Associates, the architects, and Grove Slade, who are traffic consultants.
Avis, are those names written down somewhere so that I can get them for the minutes? This is Commissioner Molloy.
I can send them to you if, I can give them to Juanita and then she can send them to you. Is that okay?
Sure.
And is someone going to present? I mean,
Yes. Yes. Alyssa is going to share the screen. Please, Alyssa.
Hey, Alyssa here. It seems that the host has disabled screen sharing.
Oh.
Is there a way to give me permission to share my screen, please?
Hold on a second. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, we have 2 other agenda items that need somebody to be able to share their screen.
Okay, let me figure out why I didn't realize screen sharing was disabled on here. Hold on a second.
If you open it,
give me one moment.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Are these slides been made available to us at some point?
Yes, we do have copies of them, Andrea. I already have them, and I had sent them around to everyone yesterday.
And it's something, as long as we're waiting, we should get these posted on the website as well.
Yep.
Let's see. I don't see anything here that says disabled screen sharing.
if you mouse over the individual who you want to allow to share on the participant list, there is a kind of an arrow where it says site on their name when you mouse over them, and you click on that, and then
You should have a controls tab up there under settings somewhere.
Or maybe go to participants and then you should be able to hover over the name and click more, I think.
I'm like.
Can't share screen, Monica? And then
I mean, I guess, I mean, I can
give permission to her once you've shared it.
Well, let me tell you what. I will go ahead and, I'm not sure why I can't figure out or what's going on.
Can you make her a host? Switch.
You can open the presentation that you have and show it on your screen.
That's what I'm about to do, because I can't seem to figure out how to.
Well, as a commercial announcement, I've ordered Zoom for Dummies on Amazon. Oh, no, I mean, I checked it out from the library. I didn't order it from Amazon. Sorry.
Okay.
You want to pass that around when you're done?
Yeah, I'll put it on an Amazon, one of those Amazon buggies.
Oh, here we go. I found how to do this.
Sorry.
It was literally under share screen. So who can so all participants. Okay. Try it now. There we
Thank
go.
you.
There you go.
Okay, you can advance, Alyssa. So I gave the introductions. We're going to do an overview of the master plan and then have an opportunity for discussions with regard to what you've seen and inform you of next steps. Next slide, please. So for those of you who attended the first community meeting, we informed you that our master plan was going to expire in December of 2020. The Zoning Commission extended the date for submission of the master plan. So now we will submit it in December, and the current plan will expire, should be June 30th of 2021. Next slide. So these are the campus boundaries that were approved in the 2011 plan. And this slide represents the different zones on the campus. Next slide, please. This is the same configuration, but and of the red, within the red area is a configuration for the university, and it is zoned R1B, which is a residential designation, and properties that are so zoned have to be reviewed by the plan has to be reviewed by the Zoning Commission. Next slide, please. And this shows the other 3 sites that we occupy on Connecticut Avenue. In yellow at the top of the slide in the square is the law school. The next configuration that's irregular in shape is the 4250, which the university recently bought. And across the street is 4225, which is the old Walgreens building, which the university leases. These are not within the boundaries of the master plan that goes to the Zoning Commission. However, the university is conducting what we call an institutional plan that includes all of our sites, not only those on Connecticut Avenue, but the community college, the hangar where we have our aviation program, and other sites, our forum in Maryland. So we will be informing you about those sites. I know you have particular interest in what's happening on Connecticut Avenue. And as Juanita Gray said, we are engaged in discussions with potential tenants, and we will share that information with you as soon as we can. Next slide, please. So just to give you an idea of what we've been doing through this process, we did information gathering, and that was to review the equity imperative, the university strategic plan. We reviewed our capital improvement project, researched the campus planning best practices. We had internal stakeholder feedback from faculty, staff, and students. Our board of trustees have given us feedback. We have an advisory group that we were meeting with monthly when we started the process. We've resumed meetings with them to get consensus, and that group is composed of faculty, staff, and students. We conducted a survey, and we conducted, as I mentioned earlier, a community meeting, and we also made a survey available on our website to members of the community. And we have also had outreach with DC agencies, including the Office of Planning and DDOT. We had a recent meeting with DDOT as well. We'd met with them earlier in the process, and we met with them last week. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about the focus in on the campus a little bit more and let you know what changes we are making or proposing for the Van Ness campus. Okay, that's going to be presented by a representative of the architectural firm.
Yes, hi. Good evening, everyone. This is Ronnie McGee and Associates. My name is Sergio. I'll be here. I'm here with the principal architect, Ronnie McGee. And you can go to this next slide. So this is the master plan we are proposing. As you can see, we intend to refurbish and improve the majority of the buildings on the campus. Some of these, like Building 44, will be reprogrammed for student housing. Building 41 would be decommissioned and turned over to DC Archives. The DGS and DCPS on the bottom left area will be turned into a artificial turf field, which is right below the existing field, which will be improved and refurbished. And if I can grab your attention to Wyndham Place, VZ Terrace, and Van Ness Street, these three areas, oh yeah, if you can circle them with, yeah. So these three areas, we are recommending to improve these areas for pedestrian access, for example, for students or visitors to give an easier access to the campus, or like a main entry point to the campus. And with that, we'll hopefully give some identity or make the campus more stand out for people outside or who don't know that there's a campus or the University of UDC is there. And yeah, I think Grosno Slade will talk about those areas in more detail.
Daniel?
Hi there. Sorry, this is Daniel Solomon with the Grove Slate. Apologies, it took me a moment to find the mute button. So next slide, please. I'm going to briefly go over some of the slides that the landscape architect has put together, and then kind of touch on what Sergio briefly mentioned, which is really the three main focal points of the recommendations that we're going to make as part of the campus master plan, which involve improvements at Wyndham, VZ, and on Van Ness. So this is just an overall campus master plan, or at least the recommendations by landscape architect. I can't speak too much to these recommendations, but if we could go to the next slide, I can at least talk to you about the transportation improvements. Here's at VZ Terrace. So this recommendation, as you all might now see, is to, and this is something we're currently still exploring, is to close down VZ Terrace and turn it into a plaza and kind of an extension of the sidewalk and more of a gateway into the UDC campus. This is something that we're in discussions with DDOT with, and this is really, and this is kind of part of the recommendations that a continuation of the recommendations that you'll see at the other locations. And it's just really taking the campus that was designed at a time with a car in mind and bringing it more into current times where we're looking at pedestrian transit and bike access to campus. Next slide, please. Here we're looking at Wyndham Place. Again, the major move here, and this is something we're in conversations with DDOT, exploring and maybe bringing this in as part of the Connecticut Avenue improvements, is really expanding the sidewalk southwards to just make it a a more inviting entrance into the northern part of the campus, while also providing better pedestrian connectivity going east-west, which would also align with improvements to the intersection of Connecticut and Wyndham. Next, please. And then finally on Van Ness, you can kind of see in the lighter gray, it's really taking the access point, which is currently at International Drive in Van Ness, and consolidating it from 2 driveways into a single driveway, which aligns the intersection of the geometry of the intersection, excuse me, to be much more normal and more easier to understand for pedestrians and drivers, and also reduces the number of driveways that pedestrians have to cross while going east-west. This would also involve perhaps closing one of the access points into the garage and consolidating it all onto this point. It's slightly off to the left here and you can't see it, apologies for that. But that's also something that we're currently exploring with DDOT. Next slide, please. And this is just a slide that really summarizes everything that we've just discussed. I'm here to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Shall we hold our questions for later or jump in now?
You can ask questions now. We only have, I think, one more slide, and that's to talk about what our next steps are. So questions are appropriate at this point.
All right, this is Carolyn Keebler. I have a couple of questions. David Christio represents the single member district that UDC is actually in, but I represent the SMD that's right across the street, which has each one of those intersections you just talked about in it. And one of the ongoing discussions that I have had as a commissioner with DDOT and our MOKers, et cetera, has been about those intersections and the state of repair that they're in, their access for pedestrian use, how dangerous they might be, the state of, you know, the lack of really well-timed crossings for the street lights for people who might not be very able to get around, you know, who might be mobility challenged, if you will. So there's a host of things and issues about each one of those intersections that have ongoing issues for my SMD and the people who live there. I was just wondering whether or not you might address not so much what is being done on the campus side, on the west side of Connecticut, but what DDOT is proposing and what UDC is proposing to activate the intersection in general, make it more safe, make it more inviting to cross, make it easier for pedestrians to do that. I think that's particularly relevant for VZ Terrace because one of the buildings that UDC is going to be using, which is the old Walgreens building, is actually on the other side of the street in my SMD. So if you could speak about any plans and the coordination you've been doing with DDOT, I'd really appreciate hearing it.
And if I may add to that for a second, just sorry to interrupt, because I'm looking at it, so because it looks like you're also getting rid of that kiss and ride altogether for Lamont.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I was going to ask about that as well.
So,
yeah. So yeah, so and Dan, if you want to take this, I'll give the layman's version of this. What our concept is to, as Dan said, to make it more pedestrian friendly and to integrate 4250 into the feel of the campus. And so that is part of the reason why we are proposing that VZ Terrace be closed so that when people approach that area, getting on and off the metro, it's really a pedestrian way, and there would no longer be traffic coming through VZ Terrace.
How would the buses work? I'm sorry,
Okay.
Avis, but how would the buses work?
So, okay, first let me say this. Any changes that we make to this area has to be with the cooperation of WMATA because they have an easement in this area.
Right.
So these are concepts that we would like to advance. We presented them to DDOT. DDOT was very receptive to the proposal. and we wanted to get feedback from the community, the ANC, so that then we could approach WMATA about the concept and what changes they were willing to make to the easement to achieve this.
I don't think you can, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't think you're going to be able to really broach WMATA with a plan unless you figure out where those buses are going to go. Because if the proposal is to shut down it on the west side behind 4250 and put it on VZ Terrace on the east side, then that's the problem for all those pedestrians.
Well, the buses are not using that driveway behind 4250.
So they're not doing that at all now? That's
No.
been closed down? Okay.
Yes, yes.
All right.
And so then the traffic coming into campus from Connecticut Avenue would be entering from Wyndham Place. And in fact, we would be using the lane behind 4250 as the traffic path for ingress and egress from the campus.
So they go in Wyndham Place and then loop down to, or they just turn around then
Yes.
at Wyndham Place? Okay.
Yeah, because what happens is people who are coming in, there's an entrance to the garage on Connecticut Avenue that's, I don't know if you've ever been to that part of the campus, but there's an entrance there. So you would come in on Wyndham Place and enter the garage. And then when you leave, you would exit the garage and go, take that road that's behind, that alley that's behind 4250, that roadway, and exit on Wyndham. But and Dan can speak to this, they've done studies to calculate whether or not trailers would be able to enter the area, fire trucks, cranes if we need them for construction, and the design that they're proposing can accommodate all of those types of vehicles.
This is Daniel again. Avis, you did a very good job capturing that. I'll just add, it's really taking, by closing down VZ Street, we're not really making substantial changes to the way traffic enter and exits campus. Right, the access from Van Ness will still be there, and then we're really just displacing what used to use VZ, which I remember pre-COVID when was the last time I was on campus. I remember there were pylons that were placed there as well, cones, excuse me. So access off of VZ was also somewhat limited already, and really moving it up to use Wyndham under 4250. This is in line with how WMATA and DDOT as a whole approach intersections that are very close to metro stops as well. By closing the western side of VZ, we now create a more cohesive pedestrian environment for people to navigate just within the neighborhood, but also students, staff, and visitors to the UDC campus. Did I skip any of your questions?
No, but I am interested. I mean, we've been focusing on the west side, and I'm a little concerned about the east side.
Oh, yes, sorry. So in terms of the operations at VZ and Connecticut, by removing the western leg, by closing it, you're simplifying the operations at the intersection. It becomes a simplified T, as opposed to currently it being, you have that almost like a five-legged intersection, the way it operates. So by simplifying the operations, it could actually give you additional signal time to give to pedestrians while maintaining vehicular throughput. At the end of the day, as part of the reversible lane project that DDOT's doing, they're going to be the ultimate deciders of how that signal is timed. But as part of our transportation analysis that accompanies the campus master plan, or sorry, the transportation review, we'll be making recommendations alongside all of these that we just presented to you that will touch on safety and operations.
And Daniel, that's a good point. The Connecticut Avenue study has got some interesting options that are going to be explored. And I think, it's good that this plan is going through, but I think it's the timing hopefully is really good because, that study is going to happen.
Yeah.
And again, this is a little campaign plug, right now there's at least a couple options for bike lanes, and either it's on one side or both sides, and however that gets worked out, that's gonna, that'll have an impact on, this plan and other things up and down Connecticut Avenue. So glad to hear you're coordinating.
Absolutely.
So, but WMATA not been in part of that discussion yet, right?
No, we did not feel it appropriate to approach WMATA until we knew that we had buy-in not only from internally from our board and the president's cabinet, but buy-in from DDOT as well as whatever input that you all have.
Great, thanks. That helps.
Question. I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Hoffman.
What's going to happen to the spheres sculpture?
What? I'm sorry.
What's
The
going
big
to
round
happen?
balls.
Yeah, over at the plaza by the metro station.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. We haven't discussed making any changes to that area. Do you have any suggestions?
Leave it where it is.
Yeah, we don't have any plans to, we have not discussed any changes to the
Good.
big balls.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay,
Avis,
and we sort of jumped in with questions. I don't know if you wanted to go through the rest of your slides before we.
I think, Alyssa, I think we were at the group discussion.
Okay. So, David, I'll let you
Avis, this is Deepa Mehta. I have a question. In the letter of intent with the letter of intent regarding activation of retail space, there is a provision regarding engaging Van Ness Main Street when there's a potential for tenants. And I'm wondering, I'm not part of that organization, but I am wondering whether that has been undertaken yet, whether there's been outreach to Van Ness Main Street, either the board chair or the executive director. It sounds like you have potential tenants under consideration.
Juanita can answer that question.
I can speak to that. We actually had a meeting with Venice Main Street about a month ago with I always say the name wrong, KLMB, to update them on what retailers, we couldn't get too specific, but we did give them some ideas of some retailers. And then also next week, President Mason and David Franklin, our acting COO, will be presenting at their board meeting to let them know where we are with the process. So we are working with Van Ness Main Street. We do keep them updated, and they are involved with the process.
Thank you. Thanks, Juanita. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you both.
Can I jump in for a sec?
I was going to say, hold on one second. David, do you have anything? We sort of.
I guess I have a range of questions, and I think I'll start with process first. And so I think I was initially under the understanding that you were going to try and get this plan essentially approved by the zoning commission by the end of the year. And I understand that that's not the case, but if you could walk us through the process from sort of where you are now until when that zoning commission hearing, when you anticipate that, could you walk us through that process?
Sure. So as I mentioned previously, I think I did, when COVID-19 happened, the zoning commission extended the deadline by 6 months. So that's why we didn't submit in December. So now our plan is to submit it in December of 2020 for the zoning commission to act on it by the end of June 2021. We will be reviewing the master plan. Is for those, there is a copy of the current one on our website if anybody wants to see it. It's a pretty big document, and so we have begun internal review of the proposed plan. The draft plan will be presented to the Academic and Student Affairs Committee of the board, the Operations Committee of the board in October in advance of the November board meeting. The reason that we have requested to be on your agenda for the October meeting is to present to you what the draft plan includes and to receive feedback from you. And then at the November 10th board meeting, it is our intent to get approval from our board.
So just if you don't mind stopping there, so that plan that you're submitting to, you'll be submitting to us at the October 20th meeting. I think we're going to need to get that a little bit in advance, but is that going to be like a 50% plan or a 80% plan, or what sort of, tell us how far along the road you're going to be when you submit that draft plan?
When we submit that draft plan, that is going to be our recommendation, the teams, the internal UDC team and the consultant's recommendation to the board, to the UDC board.
UDC board, okay.
So that will be very close to final, pending any changes that are made by the board.
I mean, I guess I will react. That sounds like a lot of information. And so today is the 15th of September. And so you got, I mean, I don't know, it sounds like you got 3 weeks to get a draft plan ready to get that to us in the community for us to review it. So it sounds like a lot of information, because it sounds like you've done a lot of outreach, and at least the work that the work that we've seen is, it's like if there's a survey, and this is, again, and maybe I should have known that there's a survey out there, but I wasn't aware of a survey on your website or anything like that. I'm not sure the rest of us were. So I guess it sounds like there's a lot of information that's going to have to be compiled in a fairly short period of time for you to get the draft, for our October 20th meeting, and then to your board on the 27th.
So we did do a survey. It was in the Forest Hills newsletter when we sent it out. Now that was all done before we paused in March. So that was shortly after the community meeting we had. So that would have been posted in February and March. So we have already gathered all the information from the internal survey as well as the external survey. I know Deepa was at our first meeting, and we did a community exercise where we received from the attendees at that meeting, from the community, input with regard to what they thought the strengths and weaknesses of the campus were, what opportunities that they saw for the university. And we took all of that information in consideration when we started drafting the master plan. So I already I received today from the consultants the draft of the plan. So that the draft has been written. So we are refining it, but it has already been drafted.
Okay. No, I mean, that's good to know. It's just, I know it's if you've got a long document that you're going to want us to review, we're going to, again, I'll speak for myself, need a little bit of, at least a week or so to review that plan. And then again, I think I'm not sure what sort of issues you've been raising, but I've heard again. So let's finish the process piece. So you're going to submit that plan to the city, and it's going to go through the Office of Planning and Office of Zoning, and then they're going to accept that. And then I guess they're going to have essentially more process that's going to happen in 2021. So at some point they're going to have a zoning commission meeting to approve this, probably, I don't know, April, May or something like that. I'm just kind of throwing that date out there. So there's more process going to happen in early 2021 on this.
Yes, and just so you know, when the meeting on the slide that's there, that shows October 14th, the Academic and Student Affairs Committee meeting, we would have had to have the plan ready for that meeting. Okay. So we will be able to share that with you in advance of your meeting.
Okay, and so I think since I think I've gotten my process out, and I know there's a lot of details that from here to the end, and I'm gonna be helping working with you on this as the SMD and the ANC rep. But I guess in terms of programs or sort of switching from process to areas, program areas, it's sort of this this idea of, UDC and the community, and particularly along the, activating the Main Street and all that. We're really excited about that, and kind of want to see, again, there's more details, and it's great to hear that you've been working with Van Ness Main Street, and that's good. I guess the second piece is in, the issue of enrollment. And I know I did read the existing plan, that's the 2011 to 2020 plan, and it talked about trying to increase enrollment. So I think, we're going to want to hear, it sounds like right now enrollment's stable. There's a lot of interesting things going on at UDC in terms of programs, in terms of issues that are, I think, really relevant to the community. Hopefully, obviously, in addition to your students, but I think we want to, it'll be interesting to see what that enrollment trend is going to look like between now and the next, to 2030. And then I guess the third area is really around housing. And I know it sounds like I've heard a little bit about your plan for the students. I think back in the original plan, it was to put it where the Eaton School was, or that was one option. That's off the table. And so now you've got this, I guess it's housing for 600 students at that building that's a little bit further east toward Carolyn. It's SMD, but still on, on Van Ness. And then I think there was also some talk about perhaps some housing over the tennis courts and the other space. And I know this came up in the community meeting, but I know you've got I've seen the Walgreens space. I understand you're leasing, but it's got capacity for, housing on top, if that was something that you all were interested in, and if there's community interest in.
Commissioner Christelle, this is Juanita. Just one quick correction. The 600 number that you just mentioned was in the 2010 Campus Master Plan. That's not necessarily the number of students that we are predicting for the Building 44,
okay.
Or excuse me, Building 41. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Sure, yeah, I guess it's, you all know what that number is, and then again, if you're going to put students there, how are they going to get there? Where are they going to park? And I think, sort of stepping back, I think, we want to help you, get a great plan together, because it's in our interest, my interest, but all of our interest to have, as Juanita introduced me to Dr. Mason this afternoon, this is the state university for the District of Columbia. And so it's in our interest to really help kind of work with each other to make this, to help you become an even better institution in this community. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, David. Any questions from any other commissioners? Okay, community questions.
Yeah, can I bring us back to VZ a bit? I would just be really, I'd be somewhat concerned to lose the bus turnaround there. I understand that it's not being used on a regular basis by any routes after the N8 was cut a while ago. But the flexibility that presents for bus service planning going forward, potentially in a time where we're not cutting service and we're actually adding, in terms of short-term routes at Van Ness, anything to go across Ward 3, or when potentially there's a restructure down the road to incorporate further service out to the Purple Line. We might want to use that as a turnaround for those services. And I think that is sort of a longer term planning issue with WMATA that we should really think very carefully about before we get rid of that possibility. Having said that, I think the idea of redoing the intersection at Connecticut is a really great idea. That would be really positive. In general, I would like to see the flexibility preserved, potentially maybe a raised crosswalk there instead, something to put pedestrians first and maybe stop cars, but to preserve bus service possibilities, especially as the one time it is used at this point is for red line service turnarounds when the red line is shut down between Van Ness and DuPont Circle or whatever. It is helpful to have. So anyway, the rest of the campus plan I think looks really great, and yeah, if you guys could take the Walgreens building and do something positive with that, that would be extra awesome.
Okay, great.
Ryan, I actually just to ask you a question about why necessarily would that future turnaround for expanded service be at that location? Why wouldn't you consider another location that might be a little bit more, that would achieve both pedestrian safety and better, better quality of mobility, and just move it somewhere else?
So Van Ness presents a really good place to turn buses because it's the first connection to the red line. And if you're providing services, particularly, if we changed where the L8 is supposed to go, yeah, at VZ, if you were supposed to change the L8 and put it down Connecticut Avenue instead to provide a connection to the Purple Line or some variant of that. That I know that bus service planners are looking at when the Purple Line comes online. It's that particular space, and the fact that they have the easement presents a unique opportunity for them. You don't want to run those buses that much further down Connecticut, no matter what, because it creates sort of service problems. And then, I would hope, God, one of these days we would start seeing some more crosstown service provided within Ward 3. And that's also, I think that the former route that used that turnaround, although not ideal in some ways, would be a good addition for transit riders in Ward 3 to have to go crosstown.
But maybe not so much for pedestrians who live around the area. I mean, understanding what you're saying, that yes, the constituency that represents the bus service and all those, it's always been a problem for as long as I've lived here.
So.
Okay, so I'm not sure if we.
So anyway, yeah, we're getting.
I would just say you can do a lot to help the pedestrian connectivity and safety on that without, they're not mutually exclusive, I'd say.
Okay, let's yeah. Okay, thank you, Ryan. And I think we probably need to just wrap it up at this point because we've really had a pretty long discussion. So I'm just going to turn it back to UDC for final closing thoughts.
So the last slide is the calendar of what we're planning to do over the next couple of months, and I've already gone through that. So unless there are any more questions, I want to thank you for your time and your engagement.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Avis.
Thank you.
Thank you. So
thank you.
The UDC and Cozen and Grosslade and Ronnie McGee will thank you and say good night and let you proceed with your meeting.
Thank you very much.
you.
We look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you. Okay, so the next thing up is the Essex condominium. I think I have an update on the HVAC, and I'm going to just turn this over to Andrea Mullet, Commissioner Mullet, to give a little, to tee this up, to give a little background. She's been dealing with this issue quite a bit the last couple of years. So, Andrea, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, this is quite a long ongoing issue that actually started a year and a half ago or more in early part of the summer when the air conditioning at the top of the building broke. And in order to cool the building, not this past summer, the one before, they, Essex Condominium put in a set of chillers on the ground level to cool the building. The chillers, from the moment that they were installed, were making inordinate amounts of noise. I remember it being described to me by one of the residents as having it sound like a plane landing on their roof. I went back there, we got DCRA to make the noise measurements. They were found in violation, and a notice of infraction was issued, and essentially nothing happened out of it. There was never a fine or never anything. We had promises at the time, commitments at the time from the Essex to fix it, to get the HVAC on the roof fixed so that they could get rid of that. And we kind of left it hanging where they figured out that it would cost quite a bit of money. The season ended, it got cool again. Promises, frankly, from the Essex to get it addressed during last winter. This past summer came and the same issue was there. They turned on the coolers. We got DCRA out. DCRA at some point was powerless to make them do anything. The notices of infraction were issued, but nothing ever happened. It's been difficult to get DCRA to enforce this. The mayor's office, the Mary Chay's office got involved. A lot of people got involved. Director Krappa from DCRA was involved. What we're delighted to hear now is Sabine O'Hara from the Essex reaching out to talk to us about their concrete plans to get that HVAC on the roof attended to so that this doesn't happen. Now they're starting to shut it down. The weather's getting cooler and we don't want this coming into next year. DCRA, frankly, has no way to monitor this over the winter when the noise violation isn't there. And so we'd really like to hear from Sabine O'Hara about the plans. What, if anything, she needs our ANC3F commission support for in terms of some of the application for DCRA, and also give the residents in the community a chance to comment, vent some of their experiences and ask questions from the Essex condominium. So I think that's it. And Sabine, I think you had some slides to share.
Yes, thank you. And
you should be able to share.
Yeah, thank you. And let me first introduce myself, if I may. Sabine O'Hara. I am new to the Essex. I've moved in 2018, and actually, Commissioner Malat, I was in your neighborhood before. I lived on Nebraska Avenue since 2006. And when my husband passed away, I sold my house and moved into a condo. So there you have it. So while I'm new to the Essex, I'm also the newly elected chair of the Essex Association Board of Directors. And I mean new, I was elected on July 9th and took office on July 10th. On July 20th, which was my first meeting, we approved a number of resolutions. And so I will now share my screen with you to hopefully this will work, and hopefully you can see this. So this is a challenge. We have a number of urgently needed upgrades, as you've undoubtedly concluded from the fact that this is the second summer with the chiller, and the complexity of the problem really made it impossible to address it within the one heating period, because you can't do work on the cooling system until the cooling period is over. We need a new chiller, a new pump, a new cooling tower, a new electrical switchboard that turns out to be 50 years old. We need new air handling systems in the hallway and new fan coil units in every unit of the building. So what have we done so far? We hired a professional engineering design firm to study the problem and to design a solution for this HVAC system. Resolution passed on July 20th to fund the entire comprehensive upgrade and replacement of the HVAC system and to replace it with a state-of-the-art energy efficient system. Also at that time, we passed a resolution to replace the electrical switchboard, because again, this is sort of a complex issue. You can't move a new chiller in and bring a new system online unless you know that the electricity that you had to turn off to do that can be turned on again. And within a 50-year-old system, that turned out to be a challenge. And I can assure you, I've learned more about HVAC systems than I ever thought I would. So here are some of the additional actions we take, and more shorter term actions, as I call it. We have implemented additional sound abatement measures in the form of sound blankets around the current temporary chiller to mitigate some of the noise emanating from the chiller. This turned out to be a bit of a challenge because some of the earlier designs that we had received actually were not possible to implement because they would have impeded the airflow. And so the company that makes the chiller said, absolutely not, you can't do this without actually compromise the system. And then more recently, we passed a resolution at our last board meeting to turn off the chiller intermittently at night when the temperatures are lower. And if you came behind the building tonight, you would find it was turned off. It was also turned off yesterday. So this is the timeline and why this is such a complex problem. So the engineering firm went top to bottom through the building to see what needed to be done to correct the problem. And that in itself was a 110-day process. The study is completed. And we have a second study also completed that had to happen on top of the first one because we didn't know that the electrical switchboard also was going to pose a problem. And now we have submitted that design to DCRA, and we've paid the fee, $12,000 and some odd dollars, so that permitting process is underway. The design that the engineering firm did for us is now also, you might say, the meat of an RFP process to hire a qualified contractor to implement all these different components of the project. And we hope to award a contract in October so that we then have the necessary time. These chillers don't sit around anywhere at a, like a hardware store. They have to be custom made, and that, I'm told, takes 60 days. And then it takes 90 days roughly to get the cooling tower and the switchboard ready for the installation of that chiller. And then we will work with the internal systems in the building. But I'm hopeful that this will all stay on time so that we will be ready by April to test the newly installed system to get ready for the cooling season next summer. So that's where we are. I put my email here, my email address, and the email address of another newly elected board member, Ben Surley. And Ben, I saw you on the call earlier today. And please email one or both of us. And thank you so much, Commissioner, for your question about how can we continue to move this process forward and how may we work together to accomplish that. If you would contact us, we have drafted a letter to DCRA to help us with the permitting process, because even as we hire a qualified contractor, as you all know, the work will not be able to begin until we actually receive the permit. And so I'm a little concerned about that process, and any help you would want to offer to assist us in that permitting process, we would greatly appreciate it. And I would be remiss if I finished my presentation without saying thank you to you as commissioners, but also to our neighbors for your tolerance and also for sharing your concerns with us. We appreciate that. And as you know, both Ben and I have been reaching out to our neighbors actively to be in communication. We have also written to Councilmember Chase's office to apprise everybody of the actions that we have taken to address this problem, because you are quite right to voice your concern, and we share your concern because of course we also have residents in the building whose units go out to the back, and they also are greatly impacted in that. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide this update, and I will stop screen sharing now and look forward to your questions and comments.
Thank
I
you.
have a question.
I'm sorry, we have to let the commissioners go first. So Andrea, I'll turn it over to you first.
Yeah, so let me start by asking you, you said you have the letter drafted to sort of talk to them about the permitting process. Do you know exactly, have you guys figured out exactly what permits you need in order to do this work, to get this work done?
The engineering firm submitted the permit and also hired an expediter. And I can tell you that I've signed the check.
Okay, so what you're asking for us in terms of help is essentially to push DCRA to approve this.
Yes, yes, Commissioner. Yes, okay. or to shorten the timeline it takes, you know, because I know from other projects that sometimes it's 90 days for a permit of that scope to be approved. And
okay,
we don't have the luxury of 90 days.
No, this is a very tight timeline, and seeing that it's due to be finished by April of 2021 makes me ridiculously nervous, because what you said is the minute that the cooling has to go on, you guys can't be working on this anymore.
Well, I mean, right now it's sort of the opposite, right? On October 1st, the temporary chiller will disappear, and that's when we can start that whole other process.
Right, I understand this, but if it gets pushed beyond April into May or into June, into the season where you have to turn it back on again, what are you guys going to do? You're going to get another chiller in the parking lot?
I don't think so, Commissioner. I think the project is phased, and I've talked through that with the engineering firm. Obviously, the chiller will be first, and that is first getting the chiller built.
Okay.
And on the site, the cooling tower will be built while that is going on. And so the switchboard also is a very early, has to be an early phase in the project, so that the electrical can be ready to have the new chiller be plugged in. And then we will deal with all the other air handling units inside the building. And as you and I both, believe me, I'm losing a lot of sleepless nights over this, but I'm confident we have a very competent engineering firm that has led this design project, and we have also a short list of qualified contractors who we intend to send the RFP to within the next few days, actually.
Okay, so you're going to commit to us that there will not be a chiller in the parking lot next summer?
If I have anything to do with it, by all means, yes, but you know, we'll all work together to make that happen. I shared the timeline with you, and I'm committed to keeping you apprised of our progress.
Thank you. Okay, I'm done. Other commissioners have something to ask?
So just so I'm clear, so you're going to be issuing an RFP in the next few days, you said?
Yes.
And that would be just for the components themselves to order the chip?
No, it's a comprehensive project.
Okay.
There is one RFP, and that's why we needed a design to accommodate all these different components. And that's why we will be looking for a general contractor who has the capacity to orchestrate all these different components, right? And so the design that the engineering firm did for us is basically the heart of the RFP. And then around that, you have the building has 163 units, and we are, you know, exists since 1958, and we're located here, and all of those good things. That's sort of more boilerplate for an RFP, but the heart and soul of it is that engineering design. And that's, yeah, as I said, ready to go out the door. we've been working actively over this last few weeks since the design was completed to get the RFP done. And we are hopeful to be able to select a competent contractor in October.
Sabine, hi, this is
Hold on 1 second, please.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Because I have a question.
Okay, Carolyn.
I just forgot what it was. Sorry, go on to the next person.
Okay, any other commissioners have any other? Okay.
Oh, yeah, I know. I remember what it was. Sorry.
Okay.
Do you anticipate any street closings to get the equipment up on the roof?
I don't know. I
would ask your contractor and your engineers about that, because that is a really time-consuming process, and
I'm
it causes, obviously, it impacts the neighborhood and the people around the area, et cetera, as well as the building residents. But that can be a real problem if you have to do street closings.
There's an alleyway behind the building that runs from Cumberland to Davenport. So I think a lot of the staging could probably happen back there and not in the street.
Yeah, just make sure you have a good expediter who really knows the processes at DCRA, who can really help get things through, because that's
Yes, and we do have an expediter, and as I said, the engineering firm, who is very experienced, they were the ones to submit the permit, and they are also the ones who, on our behalf, hired an expediter.
Who is the engineers?
Alpha Tech Engineering.
Okay.
Okay.
So Michael Young has been waiting a long time to jump in here, so I'm going to let him be the first. So go for it. Mr. Young, right, you're on mute.
Sorry, thank you, Sabine. Appreciate the transparency and the recent collaboration on this topic. We've full disclosure, we live on the corner of 36th in Davenport. Been here for just over 3 years, so we've endured this issue for a majority of our tenure in the neighborhood. Been a DC resident for over 20 years. So what we're really struggling with is the deja vu nature, almost like the Twilight Zone of this topic for over 2 summers, and seeing your critical path of your project plan. It leaves very little, if any, risk for delay to get to next late spring, early summer, where an additional chiller would need to be added for a 3rd summer. A couple questions for you. What efforts to expedite this effort, even at an additional cost of Essex, have you considered? And secondly, if you and your residents were private homeowners in the area, and you had kids and neighbors with kids who have a difficult time sleeping and are suffering in a few cases from nightmares from this, even with the windows closed, how would you handle that situation? How would your residents handle that situation? I'm just curious what the vibe is of the residents on the backside of the condo building are, who are facing a very similar and frankly illegal set of noise violations on a daily and nightly basis.
Well, there's no question that the residents whose units go out the back of the building suffer greatly from that. And I can assure you, I had no plans on becoming the president of the association anytime soon, but I am committed to doing whatever I can to correct the problem, because you are quite right to flag that and to say it is an intolerably imposing noise.
The first question I asked, what adjustments are you planning to handle the critical path of your project plan, which doesn't have a whole lot of leniency in it, to get everything implemented by April what do you plan to do?
We hired a very competent engineering firm. We intend to hire a very competent contractor. And we went with the recommendation of the engineering firm to face the project in such a way that the chiller and the electrical switchboard are first. And then comes the cooling tower, and then any internal work on the building comes last.
So, well, I appreciate and certainly recognize that you're inheriting this issue. You are in the position of fixing it. And I think I speak on behalf of the neighbors in the immediate area that are greatly impacted on this topic and this issue of noise pollution for 2 years consecutive, to convey in very direct terms that if we do not see action in a very immediate and consistent basis, there will likely be litigation.
I hear you loud and clear, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have Mr. Alejandro Rosenberg, who would like to also have a few questions. So please, sir.
Hi, thank you. I hope everyone can hear me. My name is Alejandro Rosenberg. I live about 40 or 50 feet from the back of the Essex building. I've spoken with Ms. O'Hara before and Mr. Searle, Benjamin Searle, and I want to thank Commissioner Milad for all her help with this issue. I noticed that Mr. Donaldson, Tony Donaldson, is on the call this evening. I know that he has been copied on a vast majority of the correspondence that we've had with DCRA, with Mary Che's office, with Commissioner Milad, with the Essex building. Mr. Donaldson, I don't mean to call you out, but this is the first time I've seen you or heard from you, and I hope that you'll be able to communicate to the mayor's office the gravity of this situation that we're dealing with here. It's been 2 summers now that we have had this problem. Ms. O'Hara, put together a nice presentation, but the presentation ignores the fact that this started occurring in May of 2019. And just to give you a bit of background, in May of 2019, the building moved in what looked like the back of a semi-trailer truck into the alleyway next to our homes. And it pumped out a continuous level of noise that was unbearable, such that none of us could spend any time outdoors 2 summers ago now at this point. None of us said anything. Actually, I was the first person to say something from the neighborhood to the ANC and to Mary Che's office, and that is when a tenant from the Essex building in August of 2019 approached me in this shared alleyway in tears and asked me as a member of the neighborhood if I could reach out to somebody because no one in the building was listening to the tenants who were suffering at the back of their own building as they were being made to suffer through this air conditioning. At that point, I reached out. I was trying to be a good neighbor. I figured that the building had a problem with its air conditioning and was going to fix it. Little did I know that nothing would happen. That was in August of 2019. The Essex building, under a different board at the time, we all recognize that, told Commissioner Milad and told Mary Che's office that they would fix the problem. They committed to do that. Just like tonight, they're committing to do that. But nothing happened, okay? Nothing happened. And then in May of this year, a smaller unit, physically smaller unit, was moved into the alleyway that pumped out just as much noise. The neighbors, I'm in the middle unit townhouse, Mr. Donaldson, and my neighbors on both sides have moved out. One set of neighbors was renting and they moved because of the noise. The other set of neighbors, they're homeowners. They work at the State Department. They left the country on a scheduled trip. However, their tenants that they now live there are getting a rent reduction because the noise is so unbearable and they didn't want to have to fight with their new tenants about the market rate rent that they were paying. So they had to reduce the rent. They're suffering financially. Our neighbors across the alley have renters. Their renters are leaving, and those neighbors across the alley had to move to Delaware because the noise was so unbearable this summer. I live with my family. My wife is a school teacher. My children go to Murch Elementary School that is across the street from our home, but they no longer go there, obviously because of the pandemic. We are all living and working at home 24 hours a day. And this noise is unbearable. It's oppressive. It's omnipresent. The walls shake. We hear it through our windows when the weather is when the weather is good, I hope folks can still hear me. When the weather is good, we can't have our windows open because the noise is so awful. We can't have socially distant events with our friends in our backyard or our parking area or our decks that all of us paid for. It's going to start affecting property values soon. It's already, folks are suffering financial harm already from this, not to mention that young children are having trouble sleeping, nightmares, as Tim said before. So this is a real scourge on the neighborhood. And Director Krapa from the DCRA committed in writing on an email that I know you were copied on, Mr. Donaldson, to approving this plan within 14 days earlier this summer. He has since gone radio silent. Commissioner Malad has emailed him. Mary Che has emailed him. I've been copied on those emails. There's no response. I think the mayor must get involved with this immediately. There are tenants there are tax-paying district residents that are being impacted by this. Yes, it is getting cooler. Last night was the first night since May. The first night since May in the middle of a pandemic that we are spending 24 hours socially distanced from people, that we could be outside and not have to shout at each other. The mayor must get involved with this and make sure that DCRA fixes this problem. And fixing this problem means approving these plans so that this plan gets done and that it is approved, but also making sure that this building, that DCRA enforces the law. It is illegal for them to do this. There's no problem here. I have a right to live peacefully in my home. And the law says that I do not have to listen to more than 55 decibels of noise in the nighttime in a residential neighborhood. The building also has a duty to provide air conditioning for its tenants. They can do that. There's no part of the law that says, well, sorry, neighbors, you have to suffer through an obscene amount of noise, 80, 90, 100 decibels. That's like being at a rock concert 24 hours a day. There's no law that says, well, you community suffer because they need air conditioning. They can have air conditioning. They just need to pay for it. And that's been the problem for 2 years now. And the plan that the building has put together, I hope it works. But as we all know, you can't even buy a bicycle right now. I'm wondering where they're going to get this chiller built and get it on time. And, I know they're committing tonight, it sounds like, to not putting a chiller back up in the alleyway next year. I think that's great. I also know that this chiller is supposed to come down October 1st. That's good too. But in the meantime, we still have weeks. I would love to be able to work outside or have my kids go to some virtual school outdoors. They cannot. They cannot. On my own property, they cannot. We are all suffering because of this. So I really, really hope that you'll communicate this to the mayor. And I do have some questions for the Essex. You said you hope that this will be up and running in April. And I just want to make sure that we get a commitment tonight that you're not going to put up a chiller again in the alleyway. If you guys have to, if it's the neighbors and that your own tenants need to stop having to suffer for the building's years of neglect. And it's, as Tim said, like there's a tremendous potential for litigation here, and it's ugly and it's not going to be fun for anybody. But if that's the only way for us to be effective, then that's coming. I know that you've got a mountain of aggrieved neighbors. At least your tenants are getting air conditioning. We're getting nothing. That's not right. So and also, I don't know why this fix hasn't been done before. Maybe you can commit to doing this tonight, Ms. O'Hara, but if you haven't met your deadlines, if there's a problem getting the steel from wherever or building the chiller in who knows where, why don't you just get air conditioning units? Like just buy the window units and put them in the windows and cool your apartments that way so that the rest of us don't have to suffer anymore. If you guys are going to spend $50,000 a season on renting a chiller, you can certainly provide, you can go to Best Buy and you can get window units for $200 and provide air conditioning for your tenants. So there are solutions. They do cost money, but at this point, if money talks. And again, Mr. Donaldson too, I think, if you can communicate to the mayor, DCRA is writing a $500 fine per week, if that, to the building. and has collected $0. $0. So they write these fines, you know, you have to pay a speeding ticket in DC in 30 days, and you can flagrantly violate noise statutes 24 hours a day and ruin people's summers and, you know, cause nightmares for your neighbors and cause tenants to leave town, ruin the tax base of this neighborhood. And you don't have to pay a fine because you get paid you get charged $500 a week, maybe, and they collect years later. It's ludicrous. I really hope the mayor's office will do something. Thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioner, if I could just jump in here just to add a few thoughts.
Go ahead.
That's why I definitely want to thank all of the neighbors who have been very engaged in addressing this concern. When I joined the mayor's office in May, it was in the midst of the pandemic, and it's definitely took a little bit of time to find my footing and to grasp as many issues as possible, in addition to addressing the concerns that all of the residents of the district have been facing since the pandemic. So I want to apologize on behalf of the mayor and on behalf of the city for the residents who have had to endure this and have had to go through a cycle of a year and a half of trying to address this concern over again. And I thank Commissioner Millar for also bringing this to my attention. And ever since then, I have been copied on and I have read every single concern, every single flag that has been sent to DCRA. And each time thereafter, I do follow up directly with our liaisons to say that this is an issue that we have to address. I have been by the SX, I have walked by, I have heard the noise for myself, and I do think it is completely unacceptable and unbearable that neighbors have to deal with concern. So what I have committed to, especially in recently just joining the MOCRS team, I can't speak to your experience with prior MOCRS. I can't speak to what went wrong and what didn't go wrong and what fell through before. But what I can commit to, and I do sense this from Ms. O'Hara and the team that has committed to this recent engagement, is ensuring that by next year, we do not have to be addressing the same concern. So with that, I was excited and happy to join this meeting to hear the update from the SX. And now that we do know that permits are in progress, I will commit to each of you that to the best of my ability on behalf of the mayor, that we will push DCRA to approve these permits as soon as possible so that we can get progress made and we don't have to be doing this next year. I completely wholeheartedly understand this is our homes, and I don't think anybody expected to be spending this much time at home, particularly in this season. And so I apologize, and I do hope that we can continue to keep lines of communication open, and we will continue to work to hold DCRA accountable. We know that the government is not perfect and we have our flaws, and we are definitely hearing the concerns and your comments and feedback. And so I will take it back. I will take it directly to the mayor, and I will take it directly to the DCRA to make sure we're doing everything possible to address this. And again, for us, probably not the last time, but I apologize that we're addressing this for the third time, but I hope that we will come to a resolution.
Tony, there was an email that I'm not sure whether you were copied on it yet or not, but there was an email that Councilmember Che sent to Director Crappa asking him to make sure that this happens and to force the Essex to take action. And his response was that they cannot force them to do anything. They did commit to doing inspections once a week and issuing these notices of infraction. As far as I understand, none of the notices of infraction have gone to enforcement, so we're not even anywhere close to getting a hearing to have a potential fine issued. I hear the good faith that Dr. O'Hara came and demonstrated tonight, but there needs to be a way to get a little bit of the stick. And I don't know what to suggest at this point other than an email from Mayor Bowser to Director Crappa to make it clear that this is now on her radar and that this needs to be attended to. Is that something that you think you can get to happen?
I will flag this for our leadership right now, and I will work aggressively between now and tomorrow morning to provide an update to the commission and the neighbors on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Donaldson. I appreciate that. And I also recognize, right, like you're saying, this is all occurring in a time of a pandemic. I know the city had, as you've seen in all my emails that you've been copied on, particularly in May and June, I recognize that this is, in the grand scheme of the universe, not the greatest problem that the city has ever faced in the middle of a pandemic and all sorts of other systemic issues that we as a country are dealing with. And I know that I've mentioned that in repeated emails, and I apologize for not bringing that up tonight. However, I will also note that, like you did as well, none of us expected to be spending this much time at home. My home is no longer my home. I'm in my bedroom / office right now. Downstairs is my living room / school. So, what might seem like a small problem to some, it's like a toothache that, has turned into a full root canal. This is something that, it's a nagging itch that we cannot avoid. And as time goes on and, again, the deja vu nature of it, I really do think that we need to move this forward. And I appreciate any help that you're able to get from the mayor's office. Thank you.
And I have a request of everyone who's involved with the issue is going forward to start copying me on any of the communication, any of the emails, because in the middle of this, in this timeline, we're going to have a transition because Andrea is going to be cycling off. She is finishing her term this year. I mean, her time as a commissioner, and then either Claudette or Ryan will be the new commissioners for 3F05. And so I will continue on. I'm running unopposed, so I will be the one person who will definitely be here in January. So
If Claudette is elected, there will be a potential conflict. So Commissioner Nimith may need to be the point person on this.
Yes, as Claudette is an actual owner in the Essex. So just, so anyway, thank you all. Thank you, Sabine, for presenting tonight. And
thank you for the opportunity. And I will make the slides available to you. And I will also send you a copy of the permit request. Okay. So you have the correct permit number and the whole thing. So hopefully we can work together effectively to get this through the channels.
Yes. Thank you very much, Sabine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. I think, let's see. Next thing up, I think, is Bread First. We are revisiting the Bread First liquor license. Do we have Scott? Scott,
I'm here.
Good to see you again.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good.
So, do you want to give us the quick? I mean, we got your letter. I circulated it to everyone.
Great.
Want to give us the quick?
So basically, our proximity to Uptown Market meant we had to change the class of license. So our plans haven't changed at all. Everything we talked about at the last meeting in June, when I spoke to you, we're going to move forward with the same thing. We're going to do the same thing, same plan, but we had to do it under a different class of license. That's all. While we were applying for the license, they changed sort of some of the rules about the license, which made the CR license available to us for what we wanted to do. So we just went ahead and applied for that one instead. And that's the gist of it.
Okay. Kind of weird. I mean, what is it? Just because the number of feet, like literally the Uptown's across the street and they just didn't want.
We're about 350 feet and we have to be 400 feet from Uptown Market.
Competition's good though. Isn't that the idea? But, okay.
That was our point in June, Monica, remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
As I mentioned in the emails as well, we're going to need the new settlement agreement as well. I did send that on to you and to Deepa Because the previous one you said you did was for the Class A license. This one's going to be new template. So
Right.
just,
The purpose of me being here tonight was to hopefully get support on a stipulated license so that we could, start to operate sooner rather than later, as I've been trying to do for months now.
Yep.
And while we work out the details of the settlement agreement and that kind of jazz. And
yeah, you'll have the support. The SA is just the template. I don't think there'll be any issue with us voting on that. I mean, you got the approval for the Class A last time. I doubt that there'll be any objections this time. Just fill in the blanks quickly, and let's just get that done as well.
Absolutely.
Can we take a vote on this tonight under the on condition that the SA is approved?
Yeah, let's do it that way. Well, I'll send the letter in, Scott, as soon as I get the SA. I have the letter drafted already.
That's great. And then the settlement agreement, you and I can work out the details offline about.
Yep, give me a call tomorrow, send it to me tomorrow, and I'll take a look at it, just get it done. Because literally I have the letter already set, waiting to be signed by me. So
great, we can do that.
So, okay. So I make a motion. I move that we approve Bread First's requests for a stipulated Class C restaurant license pending an executed settlement agreement between 3F and Bread First.
A second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I'm sorry, David, you had your head up for a second. You're trying to say something? Oh.
Use your emoji for that.
Oh, my emoji. Oh my God.
Yeah, I was like,
yes.
So Scott, you got it. Let's
Thank you.
Stay tomorrow, and
thank you for your time.
Of course. Sorry that you had to go through all this hassle. It's like,
no, it's part of the process.
I know. It's like Abra said, we had to do the vote again. So
do we all get biscuits and eggs now?
I don't think I'm going to be up early enough for that tomorrow.
Just kidding.
Okay. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
And next we have, well, Andrea, I'm going to let you introduce this. This is the air quality monitoring, and this was your thing as well. So I'm just going to turn this over to you.
Okay, so we have tonight Dr. Valentina Akula from American University. She's going to talk to us about a project that she and I have been talking about a little bit, but this started basically after hearing from DDOT and the presentation about the Connecticut Avenue traffic study, sort of an idea that they'll deal with any potential environmental issues later. And apparently they are also thinking more about what is required by law in terms of environmental assessment. And I guess it occurred to me that we would like some more information for the community. And so we're going to listen to some ideas about the project, instrumentation that exists, and students to get some of these measurements done, air quality measurements done. Valentina, you were going to try to share your screen and show us that slide that you sent around?
Sure. I also sent it to the email address that you sent me, but I can share my screen. Let me open it up.
Just introduce yourself to us and...
Yes, of course.
Going.
1 second. Here it is.
Thanks for staying up so late with us.
No problem. Can you see my screen?
Got it. Okay.
Okay, my name is Valentina Aquila. I'm a professor in the Department of Environmental Science at American University. I was a colleague of Andrea at NASA for many years, so that's how we know each other, before I moved to American University in 2017. So Andrea told me about the proposed changes to traffic pattern on Connecticut Avenue. And I understand why, since I'm always very confused when I drive on Connecticut Avenue trying to go home from AU. And I happened to recently, about let's say in January, to have bought a series of low-cost air quality monitors that measure particulate matter, so one of the main compounds emitted by vehicular traffic. And so I thought that it could be nice to use this air quality monitor to take some baseline measurement of the pollution levels on Connecticut Avenue and try to correlate it with traffic volumes. So I just have one slide that kind of summarizes what I'm going to tell you. So this picture on the right shows what these devices look like. So they are low cost, which means about $400 each. Little devices, more or less as big as my hand, that you hang to a pole or to a wall. And basically they take air in through two fans at the bottom and measure the concentration of particulate matter. It doesn't matter what the composition is. They don't have composition measurements, but in general, they are soot, so carbon type of particles, and sulfate. So they are particles that are in an urban environment, mainly emitted by cars, by vehicles. So a change in traffic pattern could impact positively or negatively the air quality on Connecticut Avenue, but also in the neighboring street, because this particulate matter, this PM, is transported from the sources, even relatively far away, depending on how large the particles are. So one thing that we could do pretty quickly, let's say, well, once campus reopened and students are around, is to install some of these devices. I have 10 already, most probably 2 are dead. So I have 8 for sure, possibly 10, on Connecticut Avenue and / or neighboring streets to take measurements of what the air quality is with the current traffic patterns. And by correlating that to traffic volume data, which I have some idea on how to obtain, we could find some type of correlation between traffic and pollution, so particulate matter concentrations. This can be done relatively quickly because taking the data is pretty straightforward. This cable that you see here hanging down is really just a USB cable. So you plug them in an outlet, and then they take data that are saved on a memory card, like the one for cameras. But if there is a Wi-Fi available, they're actually transmitted online via Wi-Fi to a central server, and they can be downloaded by everybody from everywhere. So it's a really simple device to use. So taking the data, do some simple statistics, could be done with it 6 months to 12 months. And then something that would be really interesting would be to actually prolong the project. I don't know if that would be still useful for you, because I know that you're speaking now about changing these traffic patterns. But so the point is that particulate matter concentration don't depend only on the source, so how many cars you have, but also depends on meteorological variables. So how much wind there is, what's the humidity, and also on things like canopy coverage. So do trees have leaf or not? And how many trees do you have and how big they are? Now, these are all quantities that we can measure or that we can get from different sources. And so an interesting project that I would have a master's student complete would be to basically create a statistical model that relates the pollution, so the concentration of particulate matter, to these different meteorological and environmental variables, and also to the intensity of the source, so to the traffic patterns. This would take longer because it's actually a relatively complicated project to complete. So depending on your timeline, you could be interested only in step 1, or you could also be interested in seeing step 2. The advantage of creating a model is that once you have it, you can actually swap traffic volumes to predict the pollution that you would get with a different traffic pattern. So for instance, if DDOT tells me, well, this is the change in traffic volume that we expect if we do this change in direction or vehicular flow, etc., I can input that in my model and figure out what is the air pollution that I would expect in a situation like that. I'll be happy to answer any question. I know that it's maybe a lot of new information coming at once.
So how much longer, I'm sorry, this is Caroline Keebler. Much longer would the model take?
Would the what take?
The model.
The model. I think that it could be completed maybe three semesters, speaking in like students' time. So
is that pre-pandemic semesters or this pandemic?
So I'm thinking this could start in January. So students are not on campus right now. So I don't have students that could man these devices. So these devices are very simple to use. There are some tricks that we have learned. I've deployed them for the past 3 months on campus just by myself to see how they work and learn how to use them, etc. And the only difficult thing is that they need a little bit of maintenance because sometimes spider tends to nest in them. So all of a sudden you get a very high count of particulate matter, etc. So you need to kind of like clean them up and babysit them maybe once every couple of weeks, etc. So I would need to have students, at least one student on campus that can go and do that on them. So for this semester, I don't think I could start, but from next semester, most probably I would. I mean, depends on the situation of the pandemic, but right now we are planning of being back in person for next semester. So the model, however, the complicated part is not taking the data, but it's doing the statistics on it. And so I think in 3 semesters, we could have something. There could be preliminary results earlier, but I don't know. I don't think it would be completed before.
Well, that if I may jump in, it's so 3 semesters. If I remember semesters correctly, that's about an 18-month period. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the complication here is that at least the part of the study is going to be done probably practically July of 2021. So it's going to be done in probably about 9 months. I mean, again, I'm not trying to speak for DDOT, but I know that's in terms of this process. It started, and there's going to be a community meeting, I think, sometime in October, but it's certainly the first. From January to July, I think the intent of DDOT is to finish, with this design. So it sounds like this time frame with DDOT is a little bit quicker than the time frame you're laying out. So that's one question, I think, I think that's a pretty significant, what are you going to call it, challenge. Second part is you've got 10 of these meters. I guess in your experience or best practice, is that, for this length of a corridor, is that a sufficient number of meters to come up with a recommendation? I don't know, I'm just asking. I
think it could. It depends how long is the stretch that you're interested into, but it's being a corridor that is relatively uniform, let's say. You could space them out, or if you're interested mostly in a smaller, I don't know what the plan for the change in traffic pattern is. So if you're interested in a smaller area, one other interesting thing that we could do is to put some of this monitor on the neighboring streets instead of all on Connecticut Avenue, so that you can also study the transport from the main source of traffic to far away. 10 is quite a lot, actually, because you have large scale data that can come from different sources, and then this would give you kind of the micro scale. So I think it would be enough. For the point of view of the time scale, let's say by maybe May, I could give you some preliminary data, but yes, it would be a much more limited study that I could do in only 6 months. So I understand what the point is. If the data would be preliminary data would be useful anyhow, I would be happy to start this project and then just keep going on with my students, because I think that my student would learn a lot by the project in general. So independently from independently if the DDOT has already chosen what to do or not.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from
Well, I guess another question I would have then, Valentina, is whether or not one of your more intrepid students might be willing to start a little earlier.
Before January.
Yeah.
So I think the problem is that they're not in DC even. They're not even in DC.
Okay.
So the master student who is starting with me this semester, she's in New Jersey and she doesn't plan to move to DC until January.
I see.
I have another master student who's been working with the air quality monitor up to now, and he's in North Carolina. So the problem is that they're just not around.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to recommend that we spend some time, we think about it, we do, and that at next month's meeting, we take a vote. My understanding is that the idea would be that because we had a budget sent around to us, a proposed budget for step 1 and step 2. And the idea would be that this would be a purchase of services that we would do and not a grant. And that we could simply vote on it at next month's meeting, whether we want to allocate our funds to do this purchase of services to get either step 1 or step 1 and step 2 done on behalf of ANC 3F. So I'm going to propose that we vote on this next month.
If you have any question in between, of course, feel free to reach out to me either via email and we can talk on the phone.
I guess just
Andrea, Monica, we had talked about it would be important to get the street and sidewalks input into this.
We spoke with them.
Yes, and what was the tenor of discussion, the outcome?
The outcome was that they want to think about it. This presentation is going to get sent to them as a little one-page sort of summary of what the idea is. And I think it took a while to convince the folks at Streets and Sidewalks that the idea is not what does DDOT need to do by law to satisfy, or DDOE need to do by law. The question is, what information does the community need in order for the community's response to be informed? And I think once we got past that hurdle, my sense was that they were way more open to this. They want to see this one-page summary that was presented tonight.
Yeah, and I think, and Andrew, I think you make a good point. It's, you know, in the world as it should be, and I know that may be a gap between sort of where we are and where we should be. It's, you know, we would have DDOT would agree to this. This is great. In fact, that they would fund it, and we'd also have, we'd have participation, from legation, which is up outside our ANC to the north, and then into 3C, I believe, is to the south. So that, again, I know that's the world as it should be, but I mean, I'm certainly comfortable with this going forward if we can make it so, and then, even if DDOT doesn't want it, at least we have the information that can be used. Again, my preference as a former bureaucrat is to have some alignment with DDOT on this process, if we can, and maybe we can. And so then I think we do have, our weight, and we can make it go.
Okay. I have no questions myself, so I think we are done. So thank you so very much, and this is to be continued.
Thanks, Valentina.
Thank you very much for having me.
Very interesting.
Yes, definitely very interesting. So thank you.
Okay, thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.
And with that, do we have any other business? I don't think so. I hope not.
Dinner.
I'll be a late dinner.
Good time.
Motion to adjourn.
A drink.
Second.
I second the motion.
All in
vote
favor?
yes.
Bye.
Good night, everybody who
Thanks,
joined us
everyone.
this long.
Bye. Thanks for
Thank you.
Yes.
See you next month. Thank you
Bye.
all very much.
Bye,
Have a great
everyone.
night. Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Monica.
Yeah.
Good night.
Bye.